Good afternoon and welcome to the Monday, April 6, 2009 informational meeting of the Sioux Falls City Council. Now calling this meeting to order, and the first order of business we will attend to is a City Council staff report. We're going to have updates from Deborah A. Owen, City Clerk.
Thank you and good afternoon, Sioux Falls City Council. A couple of notes to your agenda for the 7 o'clock meeting tonight. There was an update from after the agenda deadline concerning the notice of transfers and appropriations. That would be item 34. You have a copy of those. Those are available online for those who want to watch at home. Just to let you know that those have come in. There is no action required to that. It is simply just receiving the report for that. In addition, I think I sent a note to you, but there has been more support, just to remind you of a request to defer the resolution to Shape Sioux Falls to the Land Use Committee tonight. That's only a resolution. It is not a first and second reading, so you would be acting on it tonight and adopting the policy as is. And I think there's council members who would really like to have more background as to some of those policy changes being brought before the council, and perhaps even having some overview on that matter. Any comments, sir? I see you.
Well, I guess I was a little concerned myself about what passing the resolution would mean, since I'm not very familiar with it. I know a group has worked for a long time on it, but naturally I'm curious, and I guess if if we need to pass a resolution, continue work on it, I might not have a problem with that, but I just feel like I'm woefully unprepared to address this subject tonight. Mr. Brown?
I think that answered my question. I was just wondering what the concerns might be and what the outcome we were looking for by running it through the committee process, but that probably answered my question.
Well, and I had thought that perhaps we would ask to run this through land use or public services so we can find out more about this body of work. Anybody else, something on that subject? Very good.
Further on, let me get you an update on the Districting Commission met on Tuesday night of last week between about 6:30 and 8:30, and then on Saturday morning we met again between 10 and noon, and we had public input. Probably about 20 folks attended the Tuesday night event, maybe about 10 on Saturday morning. Some of them were the same, some of them were different. For those of you who don't know, I scattered some option M. Option M was created by some of the neighborhoods in the north end. I will tell you, now that I didn't grow up in Sioux Falls, I now know the distinction between a north ender and a northeast ender, and my apologies to anybody who I wouldn't have known that about before. But the north enders, you can see I circled the precinct. It is number 34. In the Cathedral District. Those folks, especially those, have been really very well organized and have requested that they not be separated from the others. I think that is the Cathedral District, but I'm probably messing that up too. Go ahead, Litz.
Well, I was going to tell you that the distinction as growing up in Sioux Falls is you were a north ender or you were an east sider, and typically the river was the barrier. If you could swim, you could go to the other side. Otherwise, you had to take the bridge. So.
See, I still got that wrong. I will say, though, that the majority of the comments and the requests at the public hearing for the commission was to consider moving that back to the north end, and there wasn't as many objections about going central, although they really would prefer to be in a neighborhood of the Cathedral District and the Pettigrew Heights area, and to not have that moved. I don't know what the commission will do. They meet again on April 21st. That is a public meeting, and they'll vote on their final map. Before you here on this side is the current map of the City of Sioux Falls. You can see the districts in color, and then on this side is the map that they brought forward to the public hearings. It is map L, but they've also been considering map K, and so I'm not sure what they're going to do. They are still receiving public comment until April 13th, next Monday at 5 p.m. That will close, and then we'll make all of those comments available to the commission. Yes, sir.
Deborah, I see that, did this map, option M, did this change from last week to this week?
No, this is the one that was created by those in the north side.
Okay, I guess I've always thought that I lived in District 3-1, and judging from the comments in the paper last week, I thought 3-1 was going to be included in the old north end, but I see on this map that I'll be represented by Councilor Staggers soon.
Yeah, that 3-1 has been moved more, I think, on almost every map, and maybe not map K. Which is online if you're listening at home, but map K may have that back in the north end But just to let you know, there's been, I think there's been even correspondence been sent to you as of today in your mailboxes concerning option M and that neighborhood who is, has very strong feelings about being moved, and so just making that available to you. If you want to attend the commission meeting on April 21st, it's a Tuesday at 11:30, please know you certainly can, and so can the public as well. From that meeting, they'll vote, and then they'll bring the map that they finally select to the council on May 4th. It will be in the form of a report. You won't vote on it that night. You'll simply receive it, and then you have the option to reject it or receive it. If you receive it, you adopt it by ordinance. And then just sent you a note by email. We talked about the community forum and the 5 topics or the 5 conclusions that came out of that community forum. We also have, the council has your own goals and objectives, and we're, at some point in time in the future, you may want to combine those. We certainly, it is time for us to renew those goals and objectives as a group, and then that's kind of our formal, the council's formal communication to the administration about budgeting priorities that are important to you. And then finally, just to give you an update on the laptop giveaway, we've been working on this for a while. We've got the paperwork through finance to surplus those laptops. The city of Brandon is hoping to be the recipient of those gifting laptops, and so we're moving forward with that. I think just now into the final stages, we'll bring a resolution before you, and the city of Brandon is very excited and very thankful for you taking the initiative, especially Councilmember Anderson on this project. Looking forward to those laptops, so thank you very much.
Deborah, I believe Councilor Anderson have a question.
I have a question on the district committee. Now, their goal was to move a few precincts so that we would be basically in line with the charter. Is that correct?
Yes, I think, is your mic on? I couldn't quite hear that entirely.
Yes.
The question, okay, is 2. Yeah, there is criteria set in charter where they need to, we have 2 thresholds that will have the council then begin to appoint a districting commission. One is, have we grown by 15% since the last census, since the last districting commission, or is it a decennial census coming in? And so the trigger of the 15%, we have grown by more than that, and so that's what triggers that. Is that what your question was? If I missed it.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
There we go.
Although I can tell you, I did visit with Chris Nelson some time ago when I was up in Pierre. I sat down with him just went through a number of questions, and he wondered if we wouldn't, because, we're kind of going on estimate numbers as opposed to real numbers from the census, and that suggested that down the road, like the state, we might want to consider pulling that 15% out and just going with every decennial census, so you have very firm numbers.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
then this one was just basically to balance out the districts, make sure that each district has the appropriate amount of numbers.
Yes.
And this is only going to be used for the one election, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. We have the election in 2010, and then the next election will be in 2012. The census will be out by then, and you'll have to appoint a new commission. This commission will be finished when they're done with the council adopting whatever map you choose. Then you'll appoint a new one in 2011 to address the change in numbers.
Thank you.
Councilor Jameson.
Deb, can you hear me? Mic check. Mic check.
I can hear you
1,
now.
2. Mic check. So you mentioned the goals and objectives for the administration to use for budgeting. How old are the ones that we currently have, or that they have from us?
We had met in 2006 and adopted them in 2007. And so, they're from 2007. I think we used them for 2008, but it's time to go back and review those.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions of Deborah? Very good. Thank you, Deborah, for that presentation. Next, is anybody here from the mayor's office? Evidently not. How about the audit committee?
No report.
No report. Thank you, Mr. Costello. Fiscal committee.
We will meet right after the informational meeting, and we have a item on the agenda to finalize the budget hearings for the CIP and the operational plan.
Very good. Questions of Gerald on that? Very good. Councilor Costello.
I just wonder, before we get into our committee hearing, if we should hear from the rest of the council on what their thoughts or anything has changed regarding, this year the proposal is to hear both the operational and the CIP together versus one at a time, and it was also proposed to be staggered over the Mondays throughout the month of August, I think it was, and is that any of the other counselors want to weigh in on that?
Councilor Benega?
I think we ought to make them come to the Finance Committee meeting, but that's okay.
Councilor Brown, did you have something?
Nope.
Mr. Staggers?
No, nothing at all.
Very good. Yeah, Pat, personally, I thought that what we talked about last time, and still nothing had changed in my mind, so I thought that was still a pretty good plan.
Okay.
Anything else on that subject? Very good. Number 6 is Land Use Committee.
No report.
No report from Mr. Jameson. Number 7, Public Services Committee.
No report. We do meet next week.
Do you know what the subject matter of that is, Kenny?
We will be discussing code enforcement.
Very good. Thank you, Kenny. Number 8 now, the City Council open discussion. Does anybody have any topics? Councilor Brown.
2 issues I wanted to bring up. First of all, I think for the purpose of the public, I think we need some clarification on the audit report last week. I asked Rich if he would be here because I think there's some confusion in the community about the difference between professional services and consultants. Specifically in the category of professional services, because of the way the software works for the city, things got lumped into that number that aren't necessarily what the general public would consider professional services, such as snow removal, or also publishing our minutes in the Argus Leader. I don't think those would be considered professional services. So therefore, I think that number was sort of misrepresented. And Rich, if you would, please, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you could define those differences so not only the council but the public gets a better understanding of what that was about.
Rich Ofsel, lead internal auditor. When we classify expenses in our general ledger, we kind of use broad categories, and this is sort of our cheat sheet that we use as employees to figure out which expense category to put stuff in. And not to be too tedious, but basically we have the 1,000 class, which is personnel expenses, salaries and wages. The 3,000 class is the capital expenses like CIP projects. 4,000 is debt service. But 2,000 is that broad category of just current expenses in general. And we break that down into about 8 or 9 categories. Repairs and maintenance, supplies and materials, utilities, rentals, insurance, and then we have another very broad category called professional services. And on that report, we totaled the professional services for the city, and then we gave some detailed information that was on page 3 of the report. And you're correct that things like snow removal would be in there because we don't really have another category to put that into. That seems to be the best fit is professional services because it's not really repair or maintenance, it's not insurance, it's not utilities, so it goes under professional services. Armored car service, that goes into that category. When we publish job advertisements in the Argus Leader, that would go under professional services. The subsidies for, say, the pavilion and the zoo would go under professional services. And obviously a big category, of course, is engineering work, which I think most people would consider professional services. So it's a very large category of expenses. And of that total, a small portion would be truly consultant services as defined in the report. The article was correct, and in fact, I think it said $52 million for professional services. That would be accurate, but there's more to it than just that. And I think that was your point, Councilor Brown.
It is,
Yeah.
because of the questions I received today. I was concerned about that because some of those things are required by law, like the legal publishing.
Yes.
And other things in that category, like the snow removal, the city actually saves money by contracting that out to private sector instead of hiring employees and equipment to get it done all through city.
Councilor Costello.
Rich, also, it has been kind of referred to as an internal audit. And can you speak to it's not a typical internal audit. I mean, obviously, you're from the internal audit department, but it's not an internal audit. There was no testing of controls.
That's always difficult for the public. Pretty much anything that we turn out as a report from internal audit is considered an audit. And this, we were directed specifically by the audit committee just to gather information and not present any recommendations or opinion. usually when I think of audit, as an auditor, I think of that you're looking at internal controls, or you're looking at, you're coming up with an opinion on something, and this was fact gathering.
In part of our internal audit, we have hours set aside for special projects that are brought to the attention by counselors, and that's what this was.
This was definitely, this was not in our 2009 annual audit plan. It was a special project.
Mr. Staggers.
Yes, I think we're making a good point here that when it comes to those professional services, we are including a lot of stuff other than the audit.
Yes.
But at the same time, we do have a comparison of the professional services and the cost over the past several years. And I don't have the audit report in front of me, but I think this year we're projecting, what, $34 million, is it, Rich?
That is correct. Yes.
And then the previous year was at $19 million?
That is correct.
So that is in itself something that maybe we should be
Yeah,
and
concerned
about.
The big increase looks like it's in the engineering costs, and I think we had $20 million budgeted for engineering in 2009. We had about $9 million in 2008. So,
And then in every category, there was a rise from last year.
yes, and then we also have that caveat that just because it's appropriated or budgeted doesn't mean that's you actually spend that. So you have to be kind of cautious about that. So.
Any other questions of Rich on that topic? Very good.
And I had one other issue, too, if I may. I wanted to bring the council up to speed and also try to calendar for April 20th. The Homeless Advisory Board is very close to answering the 3 questions that this council and the county commission asked for the last time we met together. Those 3 things were you wanted a specific site location, the capital costs of building a new facility there. And by the way, we are also looking at federal resources as a means of helping there. We don't have anything permanent or in place yet, but we're looking at those. And then the third element that you had asked for was the operational costs, and we're getting very close to that. And so I think that by the 4 o'clock informational on April 20th, the Homeless Advisory Board would be prepared to deliver that. In fact, tomorrow, the county has paid for the capital costs, looking at a building costs, and the county commission will be receiving that report tomorrow since they paid for it. You will receive the same detailed report in that April 20th meeting.
Questions of Councilor Brown? Vernon, normally, it's been a while since we've met with the county. Can I safely assume the next time the county city council is scheduled to meet that we will indeed meet then?
The April 20th would be the normal time that we would meet with the county at 5 o'clock, but since this is for informational purposes only and doesn't take any vote, the Homeless Advisory Board is really asking just to be on our agenda for the 20th. And I don't believe the county has any issues for joint action on the 20th. I think Ken McFarland was going to visit with you about that, Deborah, that we probably wouldn't need the 5 o'clock joint meeting.
Very good. Thank you, Vernon. Anything else for City Council open discussion? Mr. Staggers?
Yes, I have a number of items, and the first one I'd like to mention is in regard to item 31 tonight on our council agenda. And item 31 tonight is a resolution to adopt Shape Sioux Falls land use and development policies. Now, during the past year, I've attended every one of these Shape Sioux Falls meetings. So I am very aware of what this resolution is all about. My primary concern is that my colleagues on the council here are not aware of what's going on. Here we're proposing a dramatic change in policy here for the city, and we have not had an informational, we have not had this go through any committees at all. It's just being presented here for the first time tonight. And so I was just wanting to check with the rest of the members of the council about maybe we should defer this to a committee, let a committee hear it, and then eventually report it out. I'm just wondering what the rest of the council thinks.
Questions of Mr. Staggers? Councilor Costello?
I might even take it a step farther and say that maybe we should have presented an informational, because it seems like it's a pretty important enough topic that all of us would want to hear about it. I certainly would be interested in hearing more about it.
Sure.
Very good. Yeah, Mr. Staggers, I know a lot of folks have put a lot of time in on this here, and laypersons by and large being guided by the staff, and I too had some concerns, and one of my big ones, I guess, and maybe Deborah, you can speak to this, is what exactly, let's just say, we passed this resolution tonight, which I don't sense we have an appetite for. What does that mean if we pass the resolution tonight? If this is broad sweeping generalizations like it's been characterized, does passing the resolution mean anything? Is it enforceable?
Yeah, you would have officially adopted all of the comprehensive plan updates, and so you wouldn't go back and revisit it unless you wanted to revise that down the road. So it is, I think it is, I've never attended those meetings, although I was participated in the first one. I think you had to vote on different pictures and things. Other than that, I haven't, but I do think it is pretty comprehensive changes, so.
Yeah, very significant changes, too.
Councilor Brown.
I don't have any problem with deferring it and hearing more about it, but I would say the good news is that this was a very participatory process through Planning Department. More than 1,500 people participated in the Shape Sioux Falls, so I think there is a broad, probably, I can't think of an action that the council has done in my time that has gone out more directly to the people to find out what they're thinking, but I think that if people are uncomfortable with doing it tonight, I don't have any problem with delaying it.
And I think that was the consensus over this side of the mayor's chair here. This this afternoon here, we're kind of talking about it, but I wanted to know a little bit more about it. And we were thinking about perhaps turning it over to a committee. And I guess I would also, I think they had some IRAP participation, although I'm not sure the extent of that was, and I think those are the folks, to me, it's where the rubber hits the road on these type of topics, and I was curious if it had been up through IRAP or not. Mr. Brown.
Is there more value in doing it in an informational, so that way it's broadcast out to people?
Well, I think we can get it presented, at an informational, certainly, and I think the more public information we get out, but just the same, I'd feel more comfortable if perhaps Land Use Committee or Public Services had a look at this thing and we started going over some chunks of it and seeing if there is something that, quite frankly, raises questions. I remember a while back when we had the airport overlay thing, I thought that was a fairly sweeping and innocuous piece of legislation that we passed, and it turned out that there were some unhappy citizens about that, and I'd like to avoid that this time if we can, if there is such a thing hidden in the meaning of this. Councilor Jameson.
Aren't we, in effect, going to be given this presentation tonight? And we have a chance to vote on it? I mean, if we want to defer it after we hear the presentation, I think maybe we could, or not?
Yeah, if I could just say something about that. Yes, I suspect they're going to spend a few minutes tonight talking about this. I suspect they're probably also going to give the same presentation that they gave to the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission presentation was just very superficial, very incomplete. There is a lot involved here in this change, so I think it's best that we take a look at this very closely. Now, having said that, let me say there are good things in this proposal. I'm ready to admit that, but there are also some other items which are not so good.
Very good. Anything else here for City Council open discussion? Mr. Staggers, you said you had a number of items. Was that
Yeah, that's the first one. And
the first one?
If you want me to, I'll go ahead and have a deferral tonight for this.
Pardon me?
If you want me to, I'll go ahead and present a deferral tonight. If you want me to.
Please do.
Okay. And then, then we can, if you want to put it to a committee, that'd be fine, or whatever you would like to do. The second one is a phone call I got from somebody, and they wanted me to bring this up, so I'm going to bring this up. There was a constituent who called me and expressed concern about the cost over the brochure that was sent out by the Water Department. I think all of us got one of those trifolds, and showing, the how our water quality is and things. Well, this individual, I think, made a very good suggestion. He realizes, like all of us do, that that's required by the federal government to send that out. But he suggested in the future maybe make it multicolor. I mean, not multicolor, but make it black and white and save quite a bit of money. So that was his suggestion, and he also went on to say that, to me, that, well, the money saved, we could maybe experiment with a couple snow gates. But that was his suggestion. But I do agree that maybe we could get the cost of this brochure down a little bit. And then the third item deals with an issue with a committee of the Sioux Falls City Council. Now, the Sioux Falls City Council, we have 4 committees. We have the Fiscal Committee, we have the Public Services Committee, we have the Land Use Committee, and we also have the Audit Committee. Now, I think on the City Council, we have worked hard to have openness on these committees. But last week, I think we may have fallen short with the Audit Committee in terms of openness in government. Now, Greg and Pat are members of the Audit Committee, and you might want to speak to what I'm saying. But what happened is last Monday, we had Rich Oxel, our auditor, give a report detailing how much the city was spending for consultants. So that was last Monday. In the following days, after Rich's presentation, I asked Rich to be with me for a taping of Inside Town Hall. The taping took place last Friday, and the reason I wanted Rich with me there was so he could explain the audit report. He knows a lot more about it than I do. However, what happened last Friday, 4 hours before the taping of Inside Town Hall, I received a phone call saying the Audit Committee was not going to allow Rich to be on the Inside Town Hall to explain the audit report. Now, from what I understand, emails have been going back and forth among the members of the Audit Committee, and a decision was made not to allow Rich to come onto the program. And by making that decision, I think it's fair to say we're denying the public further understanding into the audit process, and at the same time thwarting the purpose of the City Council to have more openness in city government. So the reason I'm bringing this up is really to point out that we have to be conscious all the time of providing openness in city government, letting people find out from our own employees what's going on. In the past on Town Hall, we have not hesitated about having different city employees on, department heads. And in this particular case, Rich, our auditor, could have explained the audit report a lot better than I could have. So I'm just bringing that to your attention.
Very good. I guess I would say, as a layperson, I do believe there are some things in an audit that, that you probably do need a little bit of privilege on it. Not everything, but some things you probably do because they're a work in progress, and maybe the information would get put out wholesale and in a form that may not be true to the nature of the content. And so with that being said, I guess, I don't know what went on there, Mr. Staggers, but I do feel it's kind of like negotiating a business contract sometimes out there, that there are certain things in the audit committee that you do watch. And we don't want information to become political on that television program, so I guess sometimes to err in the side of being non-political has my, I look at that with favor. And I'm not saying that you would have done that, Mr. Staggers, but certainly it does lend itself to that.
Yeah, because it's kind of ironic that in the process of just wanting Rich to make a report, we had him doing that this last Monday. Then several days later, he cannot come on the city's, channel to just explain it. And then in the process, what has the audit committee done? It's made it political. So it is very unfortunate this happened.
Councilor Brown.
I do believe, Councilor Staggers, that I received word from audit committee members that the message was left days in advance, not 4 hours in advance.
Yeah, I'd like to explain that to you. I'm glad you got that information from some other members of the committee. What happened was 4 hours before the taping, Deb Owen notified me about this. And in notifying me, she then also mentioned that they did leave a voicemail message at my office. There was no voicemail message at my office. She also mentioned that they did leave a voicemail message at my home. And so eventually I did find the voicemail message. And it was Thursday afternoon that I got the message. And part of the voicemail message was from the chair of the committee. And the chair said ultimately that it might not look good to have our auditor with a city council member on this show. So that was the message I received on the voicemail. And I guess what has happened here is that, once again, this has been made political by the committee, unnecessarily so. Because if Rich can come before us on a Monday and explain in very objective terms what this report is, he can also do that Friday. That was not to be the case.
Councilor Costello.
Just a few comments. One is, the only thing that would take away the credibility of the internal audit department would be is if they were perceived as partial or not completely independent. And so everything that they do is going to be in a manner that keeps their independence and impartiality intact and their credibility. So I think it was a consensus of the audit committee was that Rich had presented the audit report in great detail and very accurately, and we had done that in a public meeting, and that was available on the Internet for anybody who's interested to watch it. So appearing with the City Council or the administration on one side of an issue or another is nothing that the Audit Committee wanted to be a part of.
Well, you're assuming one side or the other. I was just assuming we're going to have Rich just explain it. That's all. What's wrong with that?
And he did that.
He did it Monday night. What's wrong with him doing it Friday? What's wrong with that?
I think the Audit Committee thought that his appearance was adequate.
Well, I'm disappointed in the Audit Committee feeling that way, because whenever there's another opportunity for the citizens to find out what the city is doing, I think this is good.
Very good. Is there any other subjects, Councilor Staggers? You said you had a series of subjects?
No, I've covered 3 of them. So.
Very good. Okay. Any questions of Mr. Staggers? Kenny?
I guess just after listening to this is the first I've heard of it. We're talking about having the audit group being separate and independent from everyone, but yet the audit committee is still overseeing them. So, we still have to look at that. The audit committee is members of the city council.
Yeah.
And if we're making these type of decisions, Pat, this is the only thing I'm saying here, if we're making these kind of decisions and we're deciding that a department head cannot go on our CityLink channel when we're allowing pretty much every other department head to go on there, I think we might have a real gray area here.
Councilor Costello.
The Audit Committee is not made up of members of the City Council. There are 2 City Council representatives on the Audit Committee, and there are 3 lay people. And like I said, it was a majority, I think it was a consensus of the opinion. So, Audit Committee kind of makes those rules.
Okay, then I still believe that it should have been at least communicated, because this has become an issue. Rich may have, given us a great presentation and everything, but there was still enough questions where he had to come back here again today to, finish up on some things. So I still believe that, if we even have this audit committee, that they still do report back to the city council. Am I not correct on that?
Yeah, it's they do report to the City Council, but they are a completely independent board, and in order to maintain that independence, because if they're viewed as an arm of the City Council and we're just doing nothing but going after the administration and audits, where's that? What does that do for relationship building between the two? The Audit Committee. In my world, the Audit Committee would function independent of either the City Council or the administration, but the reality is that they have to answer to somebody, and we're the best answer to that. I don't know if I've answered your question or not.
I guess I'm just concerned on how this all came about,
well,
the communication.
And I can tell you, the communication that I was first brought aware of was Thursday morning. So it started Thursday morning, and to my knowledge, it was taken care of on Thursday afternoon. So it was, I can't respond to anything quicker than that.
Mr. Staggers?
Yeah, it was, like, hey, let's leave the voicemail Thursday afternoon, and we fulfilled our requirement. I don't think that's a good attitude to have. And also, at the same time, I asked the chair of the audit committee to call me back. He has not called me back either. Now, as far as the audit committee being independent from the Sioux Falls City Council, if it's independent, why are you on the committee? Why is Greg on the committee? You have two people on the committee. Isn't that a conflict of interest? Doesn't this look like that we have some maybe undue influence? No, the reality is that the audit committee is a committee of the Sioux Falls City Council. It's not just a committee of two members. It's the Sioux Falls City Council's committee. And part of our policy, or at least part of our thinking is to have things as open as possible, not try to keep information back from the public. And that's what this committee has done.
Okay, is there anything new on this topic? If not, I'm going to cut off this subject here, because I think we've heard about all the points we're going to make on it. Is there anything else for City Council open discussion? Very good. Are there any presentations today? I see Mr. Roanhorse is in the audience. Gene, did you? Very good. Okay, I don't see any presentations. So what I am going to do is I would like to have a short, I know we have a committee meeting here, but I would like to go into a short executive session for a personnel matter. So I would be looking for a motion to adjourn into executive session.
So move, Anderson.
So moved, Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second, Benninger.
Second, Benninger. Thank you. Okay, we will now adjourn into executive session. So anybody who is not prone or privy to these conversations